Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I post weekly movie and TV reviews as well as retrospectives. This Tuesday, my review for the latest season of True Detective dropped, so go and check that out. Right now, we're working our way back through the MCU with my MCU retrospective series, and you can find all of the previous installments in my MCU retrospective playlist on the channel. You'll also find a whole host of other reviews I've already done up to this point, so check those out as well. Before we get into it, please make sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, and most importantly, tell your friends. I absolutely appreciate any and all support. I can't thank you guys enough. Now, let's dive back into The Incredible Hulk. Marvel Studios' The Incredible Hulk, the long-lost stepchild of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is a weird one, to say the least. What started out as a sequel to Ang Lee's Hulk movie was rewritten and reworked to fit into Kevin Feige's planned shared universe. Then reworked once more when Edward Norton was brought on. And then Edward Norton kind of abandoned ship after production and was never heard of again. This movie it's fine. It's not bad, but it certainly isn't a masterpiece either. It's honestly just kind of there. For a long time, this movie was looked at as only vaguely related to the MCU, save for RDJ's appearance in the post-credits scene. We don't really acknowledge much of the events of this film. That is, until very recently. It's also odd going back and rewatching a whole movie with Edward Norton portraying this character and spearheading this corner of this universe, knowing that he will immediately be replaced by Mark Ruffalo. And for the better, I might add. I actually quite like the story of this film. Admittedly, there are portions of this movie that are just downright boring, and I think poorly paced, but overall, I like the bones of it. Some people were upset that we skip right through the Hulk's origin in the opening credits. It has never particularly bothered me. Hulk is one of the more popular Marvel heroes. I mean, he's up there with Spider-Man, X-Men, the Fantastic Four, etc. Everyone on Earth knows his origin. I mean, there was a whole TV series about it. Then Ang Lee's Hulk, they addressed a lot of the basics. So, I'm fine with them breezing through it. Most everyone is familiar with it regardless. I like the direction they took this story though. Seeing Banner in hiding, on the run from the military, it's interesting. Hulk is a hard character to base a whole entire film around. Everyone wants to see the Hulk smash up buildings, throw tanks like a softball, and just wreak havoc. Of course, it's fun, but you can only keep an audience's focus on that for so long. It's like the new MonsterVerse movies. And admittedly, I'm not a fan. I thought the 2017 Godzilla was really good, and I enjoyed Kong Skull Island, but now these movies are just non-stop mindless CGI monster battles. I can only take so much of that shit. So I think this movie focusing on Banner's life as a fugitive was an interesting route to take this story. In fact, my favorite portion of the film is seeing him annexed in Brazil. That was the most compelling part, I felt. Seeing his day-to-day life, learning how to control his anger and emotions, as well as trying to devise a cure for his gamma exposure with limited scientific equipment. The action in this segment of the film is fantastic as well. The chase sequence across the rooftops in Rio as Ross's team attempts to apprehend Bruce, it's great. Then we get the first encounter with the Hulk inside the bottling factory that Bruce works at. I adore this scene. The way it plays out with the Hulk shrouded by the shadows, taking Blonsky and his team out left and right while barely being seen, it's so much fun. It's reminiscent of monster movies like Jurassic Park. You're teased with brief glimpses of what the Hulk actually looks like. And this is where the movie kind of slows down for a bit after this scene as Bruce makes his way back to Virginia. Once him and Betty reconnect, the movie picks up again. The Hulk confrontation on the university campus is action-packed and it's fun. The CGI doesn't quite hold up, but this movie is from 2008, so I will say the latter half of this movie is a bit faster paced, which is nice. Once our characters arrive in New York and link up with Stearns, the movie is sort of non-stop from here. The Hulk vs. Abomination sequence is good as well, but again, the CGI isn't really up to par anymore. It sort of now looks like a video game cutscene. It also falls into that MCU trap that I've mentioned before, of having a villain that is just a reverse of your hero. It would have been nice to see Hulk encounter a different type of villain. I know Stearns is returning as Hulk's foe, the Leader, who is way more brains than brawn, so I'm definitely looking forward to their encounter. The two biggest drawbacks of this movie, in my opinion, are Edward Norton and his relationship with Betty. Look, Edward Norton is a great actor. I don't think anyone can deny that. I just don't think this role suits him. Norton's Bruce just gives off an air of confidence that I just don't think fits this character. Banner has sort of this distant, nerdy, reclusive, awkward personality that I think Ruffalo executes way better than Norton. Now, there is a chance that Norton could have evolved this over time, but I also think at this time, he was just too big for this role. Think about the team. RDJ was on the brink of not having a career. Chris Evans was in things, but he wasn't known as like this A-list style actor. Ruffalo was getting more high-profile work, but his career was still budding. Hemsworth was almost a complete unknown. And then Renner and ScarJo were known, but really just starting to break through in their careers. I feel like having such a high-profile actor like Norton continuing to play this character would have taken me out of this world. Plus the fact that because he is a bigger name, and probably would have in turn commanded more pay, more say in the storylines, as well as more of the spotlight on him, I just think ultimately Ruffalo was the better choice. And building off of that, I really do like Liv Tyler as Betty Ross. In fact, I really like all of the cast outside of Norton. Roth is great as Blonsky. William Hurt is one of the many absolutely perfect castings in this universe. Rest in peace. But the aspect I'm not fond of is the Betty and Bruce relationship. There isn't very much chemistry between Norton and Tyler, and a lot of times it just comes off feeling very forced. My only other negative of this movie is the Hulk design. I think it's the worst design in this universe by far. Ang Lee's was far too cartoonish, whereas this one I think is far too realistic. I don't like how muted the green of Hulk's skin is. Plus the fact that it doesn't look remotely like Norton in its facial features at all. I get it was 2008, but it's like they didn't even try. Lastly, the post-credit scene in this one is awesome. I remember this being my initial introduction to this shared universe concept. I saw RDJ walk through that door and thought, oh my god, are they? Yep, those sons of bitches are doing it. All in all, this movie's good. It's a fine superhero flick. It never wowed me upon my first couple viewings when I was a kid, and it still doesn't wow me today, but I like it. It's too slow at some parts for my liking, and a lot of the CGI just doesn't hold up well, but the action scenes are dynamic and they're fun. I'm glad Feige is filtering some of these characters back into the universe. We're getting both Betty and General Ross back, now played by the legend Harrison Ford. We got Roth back as Abomination and She-Hulk, even though it was kind of a disappointment, and Tim Blake Nelson is finally returning as the Leader after being set up in this movie like 16 years ago. So, I'm excited for some of these familiar faces to make their return to the big screen, especially now that they can interact with Ruffalo's version. It should be interesting, and I'm glad that Marvel finally has the decency to respect this movie and fit it in its rightful place in this universe.